Hi listeners, I'm Achida welcoming you to this YouTube channel. This video is for the paper Commonwealth Literature. Here in this video we'll discuss about the prose piece titled The Novelist as a Teacher written by Chinua Achebe. Chinua Achebe, born on 16th November 1930 in Ogidi, British in Nigeria. Then Nigeria was ruled by Britishers. His name was Albert Chinua Lumogu Achebe, shortly called Chinua Achebe. He was passed away on 21st March 2013 and his resting place is Ogidi, Anambra in Nigeria. He was a writer and a renowned teacher. His nationality is Nigerian and his tribe is Igbo. His active period was between 1958 to 2012. His famous works are Things Fall Apart, No Longer at His Arrow of God. These belongs to the African trilogy. And A Man of the People, Ant Hills of the Savannah. He is a recipient of many awards. Some among them are Nigerian National Order of Merit Award in 1979, St. Louis Literary Award in 1999, the Dorothy and the Lillian Gish Prize in 2010. We'll move on to the prose. What this prose particularly deliver is very simple. It talks about a novelist as a teacher. A novelist must be a teacher. So this essay was originally delivered as a talk in 1964 at the first Commonwealth Writers Conference at Leeds. Achebe is a self-conscious writer and he is committed to multilateral development of Nigerians. So first we want to know what Nigerian society is. Nigerian society stands stranded like rudderless ship, subjected to various racial problems and disunited by the various languages. As it is colonized by British, it lacks its own culture. This essay must be regarded as an attempt to trace the evolution of an artist, the evaluation of the writer's personal preferences, the freedom of the writer, and also his consciousness of the readers and their expectations. So, what are all the standpoints of this essay? This essay touches upon certain questions of perennial interest, such as why does the author write? Is he totally free in expressing his views? Should he try to suit the expectations of the reader? What is the aim of literature? Whether it is to teach or to delight, to instruct or to entertain? What is a true and genuine art? What is pure art and what is applied art? These were the standpoints discussed in this essay written by Chinua Achebe. We'll straight away pass on to the essay now. First, the relationship between the reader and the writer. What an African novelist must have in his mind is he must not be a mere storyteller, he must be a teacher. He compares a European writer with an African writer. So he says European writer is a bohemian, posing himself as a rebel against the society, sporting a beard and dressing himself in a peculiar way, which even the European audience may hate. So African writers must not follow the British writers. They must have their own identity. They must follow their own culture and must write for their readers instead of thinking about the European or American readers. They must have African readers in their mind and write some work. Achebe explodes this myth that African English writer has a large audience in Europe than in Africa. That is proved wrong by Achebe when he published his first novel, Things Fall Apart. Among 20,000 copies were sold in Africa, especially in Nigeria. 2,500 copies were sold in other parts and only 800 copies were sold in Britain. By this example, he proves that there is no particular audience for particular book. African writers may concentrate only on African readers, not on American or British readers. Next, he just says about what are all the views of a reader must be. Here, Achebe's readers and letters are discussed here. Based on the letters received by Achebe, he started knowing what is the duty of a writer and what is the role of a writer in a social value. Most of the readers were students and graduates. They consider him as their teacher and believed his writing will give solution to the social problems. Some of their names and the theme discussed here are given. First, Ibuba Euro Muffindi. He is a young reader. He just praised Things Fall Apart and No Longer Is novels of Achebe, and he says it is a source of good advice. Whereas a reader from Ghana again says, why Achebe haven't included an appendix section for the each and every book, because they don't treat a work that is a novel just as a part of entertainment. They think it is a good source to develop their knowledge. And a lady teacher from Ghana says, why he doesn't allow the lovers and no longer at least to get married, because that kind of marriage will be a good advice and will be so courageous for the youngsters who read that novel, and it may be a booster for them to overcome all the social superstitions and societal racism followed during that time. So that is the expectation of a reader from a novelist. Next, the change is unchangeable. What he discussed here is the writer has freedom of his own views, but he must consider the expectations of the readers. Whenever he gets a chance of educating his reader, he must do it. He cites an example of a Nigerian newspaper editor who denounced the industrial and technological impact of the West on Africa as a soulless efficiency, because everything must be coinciding with the time. As the time changes, the writer must also changes his own point of view, and he must run along the society. He must not be deviated from it. He must cultivate the good values among the society. So that is a part of novelist. And society changes according to time, so a writer must also change according to it. So he just points out a pop song in English, that is I ain't gonna wash for a week, whereas in olden time it is completely accepted by the audience, when later it is not accepted by them. Whereas during this song was published, that time God is considered more and more valuable, whereas now cleanliness is considered more valuable than godliness. That is the reflection here. So time changes everything. Next one is shortcomings and foibles of the African society. Most important thing is here. As the impact of British rule over Africa, Africans lost their cultural values. They started considering themselves inferior. They lost their faith in rituals, their own rituals, their cultures, religions, traditions, and in animism. And they started considering their own culture as a barbaric one. Result of that is they started abandoning maypole dance, which is the most chief form of African dance, in the school functions. They preferred using metal wares instead of local handicrafts and pot. And one most important example is happened in Achebe's wife working school, a school where Achebe's wife is the English teacher. One day she asked the class to write about wind called harmattan, that is a dry wind during African winter, that is during the month of December, Jan and Feb. She was shocked to see a boy writing about the European winter, which he has never experienced. When she asked the boy why he wrote about it, the boy explained that others may consider him as inferior, may laugh at him when he write about African culture. So that is the mindset of African people that during that time. So he wants to change this attitude of African society, especially Nigerian society, and they must be proud of their own culture. So what is the role of an African writer? African writer must teach the value of his society to his reader. His prime aim is to help the society regain its faith in itself. As a result, now the Nigerian youth have begun to talk proudly of African culture, African personality, African democracy, and African progress to socialism. Here, a special term called negritude is a new coinage that describes about African blacks' feeling and attitudes. So, what Jean-Paul Sartre says, that is a French existentialist philosopher, says, who lived an unconventional life, calls racism in Africa as anti-racist racism. What he says is, Negroes, that is Africans, must overcome their racism by their own. No one can else come and induce them to overcome it, because they have the capacity and courage to overcome it by themselves. So that is the point there. Next, what is the duty of a novelist? The duty of the novelist is he has to re-educate the society, restoring the old values, the most important. And he points out and quotes so many writers' views. As Mafihil says, a writer is the most sensitive part of the society because he is a man of finer sensibilities. As William Abraham, professor of Ghana, says, the writer should try to understand and solve the problem of African society and must create social awareness among Africans. So he says, as a what a view of a writer, what is the duty of a writer is he must produce the solutions for the social problems. Just through his writings, he must cultivate, he must make the audience and make the readers happy as well as so mind free and making them believe that they are truly superior. And Achebe says Africa is no longer the dark continent. They do not need any help from the Europeans to find their liberations from the unglorious past or abysmal hell. He says that don't blindly believe anyone else to come and uplift you. Just start trying on your own, then start uplifting by yourself. You need not seek for any help from anyone. So the whites are not demigods. Africans must bring back their bygone olden days just by themselves. So that is the duty there. Next one is nature and purpose of art. Finally, he talks what an art is. Pure art, art for art's sake, and an applied art. Most of the critics views it as an inferior form of art, but Achebe says that art becomes enlivening only when it does something useful and valuable to the society. So that is the proper value of art. He argues art is important, but so is education. So each and every art must educate their audience, must say something to their audience, must cultivate something in their audience. Two must go hand in hand. So the realization of the greatness of education in the contemporary Africa can be easily seen in Folktale, House of Folktale. So it ends with these words. They all came and lived happily together. He had several sons and daughters who grew up and helped in raising the standard of education of the society, that is the country. So perfect need for education and perfect example for education is given here. Only education can change the society. And novelist as a teacher, what can happen? Propaganda is permissible in literature as long as there is no attempt to falsify it. Achebe is a serious artist in this respect, and he claims, finally to conclude, we'll do with these words. I am a political writer. My politics is concerned with universal communication across racial and cultural boundaries as a means of fostering respect for all people. Such respect can issue only from understanding. So a novelist must not be a mere storyteller, he must be an educator. No man is an island, as no more so is a writer. So a writer's duty is to educate their audience, to say something to their audience for their upliftment. So that's the end of this video. Thanks for watching. Thank you.